Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
So today it's just the three of us, and it's probably good to have no observers because we're talking about love triangles. Love triangles are pretty polarizing, I think, even amongst the three of us here. So we'll just dive right in. What are your thoughts about love triangles? Love them, hate them, something in between? Narelle, you first.
Okay, so if they're done really well, if it's written really well, if it's set up really well, it can become a favorite read for the year for me. So it can become a top read. But if the story is not written to my satisfaction, and if I don't pick the winner as well, then it can also be one of my worst reads of the year as well, or I could quit reading. So I really, myself, I get very conflicted. It will depend on the story, but if it's been written well, if it's plotted well, if the characterization works, then it can be an absolute favorite read for me.
All right, Valerie?
So it's not just polarizing between the three of us, it's polarizing within one head.
Within one person, yeah.
My head is scary.
I think when we think of love triangles, sometimes we think that it's when we don't know which partner the character is going to pick, which is super hard to pull off in traditional contemporary romance, because it's usually written in hero and heroine alternating points of view. And unless you've got, I'm going to go with like one girl, two guys, unless we've got all three of those points of view, we don't really know. We do know which one it's going to be because he's the one with the point of view, right? So, and I have seen it done, and I wasn't able to remember what the title was. So this is not coming later, where it's like all her point of view, and it's all like what's going on in her head about it. And it could be the same with the guy's point of view, but I don't think I've ever read that. So then it comes down to how believable is it? Is she just wishy-washy, in which case you just kind of want to give her a whack? Mm-hmm. Or is there like a real reason, a really good setup? So there's a lot of times, most of the time, there's just an element of love triangle in it without it being like that full, will she pick this one? Will she pick that one? Because, you know, it's just how it's going to play out.
Okay. All right. So mine is a lot less nuanced than that. I pretty much just hate them. I don't care how well they're written. I have that doesn't matter to me at all.
So this is going to be a really short episode of just me and Narelle chatting. Is that what you're saying?
No, I forced myself to read some so that I would have books to talk about, and boy, do I have stuff to talk about, because it did not change my mind about whether or not I like love triangles. I just, no, not
all
my,
right, then.
Not for me. So I feel like there are two types of love triangles. Maybe there are others, but the two that come to mind are where you've got two perfectly good choices, where, like Valerie was saying, the author kind of sets up one to be the obvious pick, usually because you get their POV. Or you have the kind where because it's usually a girl and two guys. So, but whatever, where one of the triangle pieces is so obviously horrible that you know she can't choose him or he can't choose her, because they're so obviously just dastardly that you couldn't possibly, I mean, if you never wanted to sell another book, you could write it that way. Are there any other types that I missed, do you think, Narelle or Valerie?
No,
just the angle where it would be all from one point of view, so you don't see it coming quite as clearly.
Sure.
Might be a third kind of way.
And I detest those books. I cannot read one if it's just from one point of view. That just drives me nuts. I'm not a fan of romance in general that's just written from the heroine's point of view. I like to know what the guy's thinking. And I prefer, if I'm going to read a love triangle, that I actually have all three viewpoints as well. I like to know what everyone's thinking. There's like three people in this relationship mess. And that's effectively what a love triangle is. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And I want to know what all three of them are thinking. And you don't know that unless you go into their heads and have their viewpoint as well. Sure. But that said,
have you read any like that?
I think I've mentioned before that I remember going to a writing class from an Australian romance author who talked about that when we pick up a book and read a book, the reader will bond with the first eligible male to hit the page. So the first guy that meets the criteria of hero is who we will go to. And that's where I think a love triangle can be really hard, because it messes with our bonding process with our heroes. We have this natural desire for one man to bond with one woman. I think that's something that's sort of the mindset that we have. And so when you've got these options, it just gets really confusing as well. So I think that would be a reason why I think a lot of people like yourself, Beth, just really don't like love triangles. Yeah. Right. And that's just my thoughts.
No, I would buy it. I think we've pretty much already touched on what can make a good love triangle, right? The two of you who actually will occasionally like a love triangle have pretty much said what it is that will make it a good one. Do you have anything to add, Valerie?
I think what I don't like would be if one of the characters is just playing the field for the sake of keeping the options open, or they're just indecisive, wishy-washy. Like, to me, that's like, I get just stamp that with DNF, did not finish, and I'm on to a different book.
I can see that.
So yeah, they need to be like genuinely trying to figure this out, not just like going through life throwing daisies in the air.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
See, I would throw a book across the room, or nearly throw a Kindle, if I got it wrong and I picked the wrong guy. Like, I would be really, really cranky, because you can't change it.
No.
And I mean, when we come to read romance, we read romance because we're looking for that feeling at the end. We've gone through all the obstacles and all the drama and everything else that goes into a relationship. You finally get to the end. You finally get the happily ever after. And if it's with the wrong guy, it's just like, no. So, and that I will DNF a book if I think it's heading the wrong way as well. As I said, I'm very passionate in my like or dislike with you.
You don't skip ahead to the end to see.
Oh, I hate skipping ahead.
Oh,
I mean, I try not to do that when I read books. I really try not to read the last chapter and give it away. Okay. I like to plod through and work through the story. So if I have to go to the end, that will also make me cranky, because I don't like doing that.
That's fair. All right.
Don't want cranky.
No, we don't need anybody to be cranky. All right, so we're gonna hit up some books, some love triangle books that we have read, and we'll talk about them a little bit. I'm gonna go first because
are you?
I am
convenient
because I've read exactly two, so I have two books to talk about. More Than a Princess by Harrel Moncado. And this is Princess Anna. And don't ask me to pronounce Carol's country names. Montevado, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. She's not even the spare. Her sister just got crowned queen, Adrian. And I believe she has, oh no, maybe she is this. I can't decide if she's the spare or not. Isn't it? I think there's a brother. But
I've read quite a few of Carol's books,
yeah.
But not this one.
So anyway, this for Adrian, the sister, who's the queen now, one of her suitors had been Jonathan, who lives in Missouri in Serenity Landing. Well, now they're trying to maybe pair him up with Anna, because, you know, he's still eligible and he didn't get the queen, so maybe he could get a princess. But then yeah, but then there's also this doctor, pediatrician, who is it cracks me up because like both of the guys are from the States, and here she's this princess for Montevardo, and I'm like, there were no Montevarians who were eligible, but apparently not, but that's okay. So anyway, and she really likes the doctor a lot, but she would be willing to have sort of a, I don't know, like friendly, because she's friends with Jonathan, so she's like, you know, we could get along, it would be fine. So, you know, she's torn between that. But the thing that irritated the bunkers out of me, and I hated Anna the whole book, and I don't think she deserves either of them, because she was making out with both of them. Ooh. And I'm like, if you are, you know, she's very upfront. I just don't know. I'm trying to decide. And they're both trying to be kind and give her all this time to figure it out. But then she's making out with both of them. I'm like, if you have two guys that you're trying to figure out which one you're in love with, you need to not be kissing either of them, because that's just wrong.
But how else would you know which one is the better kisser? I mean, this is a genuine dilemma, isn't it? No.
I mean, I don't think that that's like, you make the choice first that you're in love with the right guy, who's the right guy for you for all these other reasons. And then, you know, I guess if at that point you choose him and he's a terrible kisser, you can reassess. But I just don't think you should be making out with both of them. Like, and she'll go from making out with one of them to answering the phone to talk to the other one. And I'm like, I'd be so done. I'd be out. Like, if I was either of these guys, I'd just be like, you may be a princess, but no, thank you. Just none. So that was my first one. It's still a good book, but I did not love Anna. So
this is how you really feel about love triangles.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wanting to be sure that our listeners could figure that out.
Figured out that I absolutely
missed it. Yes. Well, I mean, who's the best kisser does not make of the best marriage.
No.
Yeah.
No, it does not. Yeah. So that was my first one. Narelle, what's your first one?
Okay, well, I have 3 books I'm talking about that I love. So so the first one, and all 3 of them I have mentioned in previous episodes. So I'm not going to go too much into the story. So the first one I'm going to talk about, and also Tony Shiloh loves this book. We fangirl on this book, is The Last Summer by Brandi Bruce. And this one is 2 girls and 1 guy, which is different to the 1 girl and 2 guys set up. And they're a group of really close friends. And we go into at least the girl's point of view. I don't know if I can't remember if we're going to his point of view. But they both legitimately could have been happy with him, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it was a difficult book to read, and it was heartbreaking at the end. And I cried at the end. Like, I was really, I really felt for the person that didn't win. And there's a sequel, and she gets a happily ever after, and that's why I can cope with all that, because I know that it might be the temporary end. It's like you have intermission and then you get to her real story. So and I really like the structure of that, because I like to see everyone win. I don't like to see someone lose. But I just love the close friendships and the relationship dynamics. And I thought that I didn't feel like he did the wrong thing by either of them, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I think in a love triangle, often you can look at the person who has the choice and you feel like they've wronged somebody. But I didn't feel that when I was reading it as well. And it had a lot of emotion in it. There was a lot of shared history with all of the characters as well. And I'm not going to reveal how it all ended, but just to say it's a fabulous book. And if you love triangles, or you're not sure if you love triangles, go and read Brandi Bruce's book, but read both books. Read the second one as well.
And have a box of Kleenex.
A box set. Yes. Yeah. So have the Kleenex handy as well. But I really enjoyed it. The Last Summer. Yeah.
All right. I almost got that one because you have mentioned it before when I was trying, but I also knew that like you were disappointed with who got the one in the end. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. So I didn't.
It didn't matter, but it didn't matter who was at the end. There was no way to avoid being disappointed.
Okay.
Because all 3 characters were worthy. It wasn't that there was one person who was too immature or too this or too that. I honestly think that he could have chosen the other one and had a very enriching, happy marriage with her.
Okay.
And so if you really sort of buy into the whole soulmates, there's only one person for you ever in your life, then you would struggle with this book.
Sure.
Because I think it really shows how in theory, there could be multiple people that could be the right person to marry.
Okay.
And that's something that does come out in this story as well. But yeah, it's very good.
All right, Valerie, what's your first one?
I am going to go with Lindsay Harrel book for the first one, All I've Waited For. And I talked about this one a couple of weeks ago because it's also a second chance romance, as the couple had undeclared or unrequited love in high school, but neither of them thought it was mutual. So they kind of veered away from each other. He's the son of vineyard owners and the vineyard's in trouble. And he got engaged to a woman in France who cannot inherit her grandfather's vineyard without being married because her grandfather is old school. So it's a total setup for a marriage of convenience. He never pretends otherwise, except that he's not like announcing it from the street corners in his hometown, which is where they are. So Ashley is the wedding planner that he doesn't know she's working there when he goes in with his new fiance. And so then he realizes that she's still there, she's still single, and that there's still a spark between them, but hello, he's engaged to Claire, and this is a problem because he needs to marry Claire to save his family's vineyard. So there's a lot of drama inside about that, but I thought it was pretty well done. I mean, it's alternating Derek and Ashley's points of view. You know that he's gonna give it up, but you don't know how it's gonna play out for his family's fortunes and the vineyard and stuff. So it's gonna be interesting either way. So yeah, I enjoyed that one.
How do you not classify him as a cheater?
Because you're in his head and you can see the dilemma from his point of view, and he's not cheating.
Cheater. He's a conflicted cheater.
He's not a cheater.
Is he engaged and falling in love with someone else without breaking it off with the person he's engaged with?
Yes.
So he's cheating emotionally.
But
having an emotional affair.
Okay. I'll grant you that.
This is my issue with love triangles.
but he does break it off. Like this doesn't happen at the very end, so it's not a love triangle from word all 1 to word 100,000.
That's good.
So there is some resolution of that temporary storyline
of cheating
before you get to the end. You can put it that way if you like.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's just this is my struggle, because I just
I hear you.
Yeah,
that's legit.
Yeah. Well, it's the same way like with Anna kissing both guys. She's basically cheating on both of them because she's kissing two people, and it's just like I just don't have a ton of respect for that.
You can have a monogamous love triangle though. So with Brandi's book, The Last Summer, he wasn't with both of the girls at the same time. It was one to the other. Like there was it was a monogamous love triangle, and that is possible. You might do better with that. That might resolve your cheating issue, which is a very legitimate issue.
But if the reader still thinks that either of the characters is a possible correct outcome, then how is it monogamous? I mean, they're both in there at the same time. I mean, not on the page at the same time, I hope. Let me kiss you. No. But
the kissing booth, just they're behind each other in line.
But it's like I am with you now, therefore I'm not going to think or go there. in my head emotionally with you because I'm choosing you. Does that make sense? So I'm choosing you, and you're the one I'm focusing on, and I'm not thinking about her, but I cannot.
But I'm thinking about not thinking about her.
Yeah, but but this is also, I think, real life. I think if you want to, I don't think affairs just magically just happen out of nowhere. I think that there are often in people's relationships times where there will be a third person that for whatever reason is different to their spouse, who meets different needs, or there's something about them that they're drawn to. So I think the love triangle sort of draws on some of that
That's
dynamic.
a good point.
Yeah. And that's why I think love triangles can be very relatable, because I think people can relate to my spouse doesn't fulfill my needs in this way, and then this person could do that. So yeah, it sort of draws on that play of how people are attracted to each other. But I do draw the line at kissing two people at the same time. I really don't think is appropriate in contemporary Christian romance. Yeah. I think it works fine in general market, and for a whole bunch of reasons, I think it works really well there. But I think most readers would be put off by having the kissing at the same time thing going on.
In general market romance, I imagine there is less of an issue with emotional affairs too, because they didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
But they're just as damaging.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So my second one is What Could Be by Jaycee Weaver. And I actually did not hate this one because here's why. Because it probably doesn't actually qualify as a true love triangle. The girl is with Caleb, and I've totally forgotten her name, but for whatever reason, I remember her boyfriend's name. What is it?
Bryn. I looked her up.
Bryn, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So she's dating Caleb. She's already having doubts about him at the very beginning and their relationship, because they've been drifting apart. He's blowing her off constantly. So they're already on the rocks. And the hot dad at her after school program, she just sort of notices that he's good looking and she loves his little boy, but she doesn't go anywhere else. He very much is interested more in her, and she's just like, no, he's just the dad of this little boy who I love. She doesn't pursue anything with him. And while she doesn't outright say that she has a boyfriend, she does mention Caleb, but there's never anything between her and hot dad until she and Caleb have broken up. And so while, this thing with Caleb is sort of breaking and falling apart between them, and she is getting interested in the other guy, it never goes, as soon as she realizes she's interested, she's like, I have to end things with Caleb. And so to me, so it probably doesn't even qualify as a love triangle, because to me, this is how a love triangle is done respectfully to all parties involved. It's like, I'm with this guy and I realize that it's not working out, so I'm going to end things with him before getting even emotionally involved with this other person.
But the attraction was there.
But the attraction was there. But she never acted on it or even really thought about it beyond like acknowledging it and acknowledging that she was with Caleb. Like, so
I've read that one.
Yeah.
It's been a while, so I don't remember all the nuances. But yeah.
Yeah. So it probably doesn't even, like, it's not for like diehard love triangle lovers are going to be like, yeah, that's not at all. Because like I mentioned in a previous podcast that my angst tolerance is pretty low. And I think that's probably also at the root of my just absolute disgust for love triangles, is because there does tend to be just a whole lot of drama and angst. And I'm just like, I don't need that from my books. That's not why I read, is to fill that. No, I'll watch the news if I need angst,
Plenty there.
All right, Narelle, what's your second one?
My second one, which I've talked about before, is A Season to Dance by Patricia Beale. And what I really like the twist on the love triangle in this one, because we read chapter 1 and she's with her husband who's dying. It's this is another tearjerker. You need Kleenex for this one as well. Beautiful book. And you don't know who it is though. So she has a dying husband at the beginning, and then we move into the story and we actually don't know who was in that first chapter. So it's a mystery. And I think that's a really fun twist on it. And then she moves through relationships with, what was her name again? Her name was Anna. And she moved, there's Klaus, who's the German ballerina, because she's Anna's a ballerina who's in Germany. So the book actually is partly set in Germany. And then there's Peter, who's in the States. And I really just love the dynamics of the love triangle in that story. And as I was saying, you can actually get a lot of depth of emotion and a lot of angst without being angsty, if that makes sense. Because so she deeply loved both of these men in the story. So I just thought it was beautiful. So if you like love triangles, go read that one. It's a good one.
I have read that one. I read it because you kept recommending it.
Yeah.
I can see it on your face.
I did not respect her at all. Because again, she was involved with both of them at the same time.
She wasn't a Christian though, so I think that that does make a difference. Yeah,
I don't know. To me, like, I don't know. Not to me. To me, like, I don't know. Like I said, I struggle with love triangles, and I struggled with that book a lot because I didn't like her. I didn't like Klaus because I thought he was pretty underhanded trying to win. And I felt sorry for Peter and that he deserved so much better once he finally got sort of over it because she was with Klaus for a while. And I'm like, don't go back to that train wreck, man. You deserve way better than that, because it's not my top read ever. But no,
Peter was my favorite.
Peter was my favorite, definitely. Yeah. If you like love triangles, it is a well-written love triangle.
Yeah.
It is a well-written love triangle.
Yes.
All the commas are in the right place.
Well, and more than that, like, it evokes all the things that I think love triangles are supposed to evoke. My problem is that I hate having that evoked in me, but if you really enjoy the process of like wanting to fling your book across the room, then that's the book for you for sure.
Narelle?
And that's why it's a good book, because a good book will draw out your emotions. And they always say the best book should have 1-star and 5-star reviews, because you react emotionally and you either love it or you hate it.
Sure.
So a book that's lukewarm is not, you know what I mean? I think that's
I'll read all the book. I will read all the lukewarm books.
Yeah, you're memorable. Narelle, did you say that this book is written from all 3 points of view? Did you say that?
I think this one was mainly her. I think it was her point of view most of the story. It is. I haven't read it for a while. I think it's all right.
I was just curious.
It's
It's
first person, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's all first person her.
It's interesting that I liked it because it is all in the one point of view. But I think why I liked it was the way that first chapter was set up, because you had the who did she end up with is set up at the beginning. So we know, because we know the destination. It's like reading the last pages of a book that I never do. Yeah, so you know where the story's heading. You know what's going on. You know something that she's going to lose somebody. And that's what I think added to the enjoyment of that book. If that first chapter hadn't have been there, I don't think I would have enjoyed the book as much as I have.
That's interesting.
What's your next one, Valerie?
Let's go with Let It Be Me by Becky Wade.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of setup. This is not book 1. So we've met all of these characters, or the 2 guys anyways. We met them in the previous book, which has been a few months since I read it. So Sebastian is a guy who's been alone all his life except for Ben's family. Ben's family like embraced him and brought him in. And Sebastian has gone on to become a pediatric heart surgeon. And he was in an accident last fall in the book. And this woman had been driving right behind him, and she like kept him company until the paramedics came. And he was just like, he'd never forgotten her voice. And he was like become obsessed with this woman whose name he never not really got a super good look at her even, and all this stuff. So he's been telling his friends, man, I just need to find this woman who's so amazing. And then meanwhile, his friend Ben, who's a high school teacher, is telling him about this woman that he works with that he's in love with. He's in love with Leah, the math teacher. And Sebastian's like, well, you should go after her. You should tell her how you feel. And Ben's pulling back. So anyway, it turns out that it's the same woman.
Yeah.
So as soon as Sebastian meets her, and then like 5 minutes later, and he recognizes who it is, he recognizes her voice, and he's like ready to step in and ask her to date him, like to go out with him. And then Ben shows up and says, oh, this is my coworker Leah. And Sebastian is like, oh,
yeah,
oh. And he knows, because they're like bonded brothers, that he can't do that to Ben. So he pulls back. Meanwhile, Leah is, I think it's never says so in the book, but I would guess she's on the spectrum. She's very, very focused. I loved her. She was amazing, but partly because she doesn't think like me. And I just love the insights and stuff. So she's like so focused on math that she's like completely has no clue what she's doing to either of these guys. So it's not like she's being wishy-washy. She's just like friends with them, but she doesn't want to get romantically involved with anybody ever. She's taking care of her younger brother, and she wants to get her PhD, and she's just focused on life. And all of a sudden she figures out that there's these two men who neither of them's now going to make a move because of their bond together. So it was, I mean, they do make up their minds like partway through. It's not a love triangle to the end. You know who it's going to be. But I thought it was pretty well done. And I enjoyed the dilemma that the guys were put in. And especially because she just had no clue.
And that's what makes a difference. I think for a love triangle to really work for me, all three parties need to be connected to each other as well, because it just adds that extra layer of if I make a decision to choose this person, I also damage this relationship with that person. Yeah. And I really like the complexities of that if it's done well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're actually we're a little over, surprisingly, because we have opinions, or I'm just loud and I have opinions. I don't know.
Do I have time to mention one more?
Sure.
Very quickly.
Yes.
I just wanted to quickly mention You Belong With Me by Tari Faris. And that's the opening book in this Restoring Heritage series. I'm not going to go into the story because we've talked about it before. And that's the one with Janie, Madison and Thomas. That's the romantic subplot. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed that love triangle. I think that one worked really well. Maybe because it wasn't the main romance in the book. I think that also helped. It was kind of the side love story. And it also made sense as to who was going to win and who was going to lose as well. But it was a matter of untangling how that was going to work. And the person who lost got her own love story later on in the series and got her happily ever after. So that made me happy because everyone wins eventually.
Yeah. I don't remember disliking that subplot in that book. It doesn't like stick in my brain like a thumbtack. Sometimes I read love triangles and then it just sits there and like pokes in my brain about how much I hated it. So
I think that one of the books that I released this summer kind of fits into that as well, Amethyst Attraction. We've got a young youth pastor who knows that he wants to get married, and he knows that the woman he's attracted to lives very far away, but she's coming to town for the summer. And so he decides to date this very perfect woman that lives in the community because she would be the perfect pastor's wife. She teaches Sunday school. She's amazing. There's nothing wrong with her, but there's no spark. And so I had a lot of fun with that. I don't know if it's a traditional love triangle. No, I know it's not. But it has the elements of that where he's kind of torn between the perfect woman and the one that might be perfect for him. So,
I'm looking forward to reading that one. It's near the top of my TBR.
There you go. That's what it's about.
I don't consider that one a love triangle, honestly. Because
you didn't hate it?
Well, I had some problems with it, mostly because he was irritating to me, but not because of, more just because like he doesn't ever, it's like Jaycee's book. He wants the one while he's dating the other, but he never does anything about it. And then he ends things before doing any, so it's not, which I did appreciate.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I feel like even though we're a little long today, we have to hit up the big movie love triangles, just a couple of them. And Valerie's like, I'm out. But Narelle and I can hit up the big movie love triangles just because I feel like they're obvious and we have to touch on them real quick. Yes. So you've got Jacob or Edward in Twilight.
Yeah.
What team are you on, Narelle?
Edward.
Okay, me too. Edward. I am also team Edward.
But I really felt for Jacob. I really struggled with that with Twilight. But anyway, yeah.
See, I didn't so much, just because to me, he was so annoying about the fact that he was pursuing Bella when Bella was so like, look, dude, I want Edward. And there's an element of, at some point, if you don't accept that no means no, then you've crossed lines.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jacob like took the lines, trampled them, and then like buried them in mud.
Yeah. I just don't like people losing. I think it's my problem. I just want the win-win everywhere.
Sure. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So then Hunger Games, you've got Peter or Gale.
I wasn't big into Hunger Games.
Okay.
I should have asked my children about that one.
That's okay.
Yeah. So I don't have a strong opinion on Hunger Games.
All right. I'm Team PETA, hands down. Hands down, Team PETA. And then like Titanic, Jack or Cal.
Oh, Titanic was hard. I'd probably have to go with Jack.
Okay.
Yeah.
He seems to be the popular choice. Titanic's one I don't actually have an opinion on. I fall asleep every time I try to watch Titanic. If I can't sleep, I put Titanic on, and I am usually out before he gets on the ship. Like that's like Titanic.
Well, it's kind of like the ship of doom. Like you just know what's going to happen, and that's it's really hard, I think, to read something when you know that there's going to be this tragic ending. Yep. I remember watching it at the movies, and it was a hard movie to watch in so many ways.
Yeah,
which is why I haven't watched it.
There you go. And hey, spoiler alert: the boat sinks.
Yeah, exactly. I know that. So whatever.
All right, Linus or David in Sabrina.
I don't have an opinion on that one either.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Linus all the way. Primarily, I will admit, because the version I love is the Harrison Ford version. And so if there's an option to choose Harrison Ford, I will always choose Harrison Ford. So has nothing to do with the character, but I will always choose Harrison Ford.
Oh, he's a good choice.
Yeah.
And I think maybe with love triangle movies, often I am like, I think sometimes I just mentally go to the place of, I'm really not going to get too invested because I'm probably going to get it wrong if it's a movie that's being done really well. Because in a movie, you see the body language and you see a bit more than what is on the page as well. So you get a few clues from the visual cues that you get from a movie too. So I'll sit back and I'll say, oh, they're both good. Oh, that's either of them can win. I'm happy.
That's the other one. I didn't put it on our list when we were doing this, but Sweet Home Alabama which is a rom-com that most people love. I despise it because of, I think she should have stuck with the first guy. Like, they're both such good guys, and I hate how she treats the first guy. I just hate it because I'm like, I have no use for Reese Witherspoon's character in that movie. I feel like she's a horrible person. So
and it was really, because they were so different, it was a real sort of urban city versus country bumpkin story as well. Yeah. And she on it, it was like what was clever about that movie is that she was at the fork in the road. Yeah. Which direction do I want my life to go? Do I want my life to go back to New York City and doing what I was doing? Or am I going to go back to my roots in Alabama and reconnect with family? And so if you like small town, you're probably going to swing that way. If you like urban, you're probably going to swing the other way. So I think that also comes into it in terms of lifestyle choice, because she was making a lifestyle choice with whichever guy she chose.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, final love triangle thoughts.
They're fun.
I have none. I've been there. Said them all.
All right. Then thank you everyone for joining us at Story Chats. I'm sure you've got something to say. Let us know what it is in the comments on YouTube or on our Story Chats Facebook page. You can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week. Don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.